Welcome everyone to Dolls of Our Lives. This is the podcast where we're reliving the American Girl series book by book, except here on Patreon where we're doing pretty much whatever we want. I'm Mary.
I'm Zoe. No.
Whoa, I'm Zoe Louise. That's such a weird coincidence.
That's a really weird... I'm actually still Allison, and I'm actually still on this spirit plane as far as I think.
I mean, I don't know what spirit plane I'm on, but did I ever? So that's sort of on brand for me.
Vibe check, like Pam Conrad, we see you. Pam Conrad has sadly passed since publishing Stonewords and lots of other wonderful books. We took a listener request for October of this year.
We took a swing from the Discord database that we maintain where people are very welcome to go and put their suggestions. And this was one, and man, it took me on a ride.
Here's like the one line summary of this book. It's called Stonewords, came out in 1990 by Pam Conrad. The headline is thus: Zoe's best friend is a ghost. Here's the deal though. Here's the deal. Zoe's best friend is Zoe Louise. Zoe Louise is not alive, basically, as a summary. How are these two gonna either get disentangled from each other or get in their own timelines? Pam Conrad in 130 terse pages is like, I'll get you there. Don't worry.
No problem. I have visions of Pam Conrad pacing back and forth in her home with a voice recorder, and she's like literally dictating this and is like, go. We open on, where is this house? What state is this in? It felt like Maine, but
let's talk about that, because I think the context is not necessarily set up. Here's what's going on with Pam. On the back of my book, it says, be sure not to miss My Daniel by Pam Conrad, an adventurous tale of dinosaur prospecting, love, and treachery set in 19th century Nebraska. I loved that book.
What?
So when I saw the chance to hop on a Pam Conrad train, I was like, author of Prairie Songs, My Daniel, Pedro's Journal, I'm there. Here's the thing about this book. I'm not really sure what happens in this book. I do know that it won a lot of awards. I really applaud the courage of this author for saying, I'm going to have a girl named Zoe, another girl named Zoe, grandparents, and an absentee mom, no dad, and that's it. And that's it. She's like, crisis of the family who? It's all here.
Pam Conrad literally sat down at her word processor and just said to herself in a mirror, I don't need a reason. Period.
No.
And I mean, from the moment of this cover will stay with me through the end of time. I'm holding it over my face. It's the main character, Zoe, not to be confused with Ghost Zoe Louise. And she's staring at her own hand, which has been transformed into a skeleton. Like it's been reduced to bone through the inexplicable process of moving up or down a staircase. I could never figure it out, which was the portal to Zoe Louise's world.
Here's what I'll say after reading this. R.L. Stine who? No, I'm kidding. Let's go through the summary. I don't think it's going to help.
Summary. This book defies summary. When I was done with this book, I stared into space. I really thought about ghost theory. I went and listened to Walking with a Ghost by Tegan and Sarah. It feels like that's honestly the most accurate summary of this book. I went walking with a ghost. That's kind of it, basically, but also not.
Zoe's best friend is a ghost. The first time Zoe met Zoe Louise, Zoe was 4 years old. If you're having a hard time with this, like, just don't worry about it.
Push through.
Zoe Louise was more than 100. From that day on, living in the same house, separated by a staircase and a century, Zoe and Zoe Louise have been an important and permanent part of each other's lives. Like, the second part is literally not true, but sure. Now Zoe's older, and although Zoe Louise never grows up, she's changing in dreadful ways. Time is running out for Zoe's best friend, and Zoe is the only one who can help her. To do so, she must travel back 100 years and alter the past. But in changing the past, must she also change the present? If she saves her friend's life, will she lose Zoe Louise forever? Let's
I'm just shaking my head. Oh my God.
Drop the Zoes. Zoe Deschanel, Zoe Louise, Zoe, for 1 second. Last year, we did an Avi book at my request, which had a very similar plot about a boy needing to go back and change
Still
time.
with me.
I do feel like Pam Conrad was like, we need a Title IX for ghost hunting. And Zoe is gonna do it all herself. She's like,
Zoe is like, I will not be asking an adult in my life if any of this is real. I mean, there are so many scenes where I'm like, is this a breakdown? Is this a breakthrough? Like, what's happening?
did you like
No
this
one's
book?
asking questions. I mean, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I hate myself because I did like this book a lot. Like, it made me laugh a lot. The only part that's frustrating and, like, that's truly saying something where I'm like, you know what? You don't want to explain the backstory. The last line of that summary is like, what if Zoe Louise dying or living? What does that mean for Zoe's life? And it's like, that question, readers, will never be answered.
No.
It's never really mattered. And at the end, it's like, would it surprise you to learn that the thing that allows Zoe to save Zoe Louise's life is love? And it's like, I don't know, maybe. Like, it's just so it's like, it kind of putters out at the end where you want there to be like a flashbang, like crazy conclusion. And it's just like, I pulled her down the stairs and she lived. Thank you.
Here's what I liked about this. There are so many things that this book could be about. For example, Zoe is living with her grandparents because her mother, who is a part-time wreath maker, I'm only laughing because it's like,
don't ask.
We get like 2 details about her and that is dropped in. She is not reliable. We really don't have a better sense beyond that. Like, we don't really know, like, was Zoe an early test tube baby? Like, that's not clear. You're not getting those answers on this timeline.
Cannot.
She's got great grandparents. They love their granddaughter. They tolerate their daughter. And they effing love their pug. This is very important to this story. Like,
the pug matters most.
The vivid detail we get about the pug. So I would say this. I think a reason a lot of our listeners were probably drawn to this is not a very scary ghost story. There are elements that are mystical. I really start with kind of like, I think what I liked about this book is it opens with Zoe thinking about falling asleep with dirty feet, like grass, and like feeling like the earth between her toes. Maybe that's repulsive to some people. It immediately pulled me to like summers in my childhood, playing outside, and the fact that Zoe has this like make-believe but real space that's important to her. She has a playhouse that her grandfather helps her take care of, and that's where she meets Zoe Louise, who is dead.
She has passed, and she emerges as, like, I guess a good-looking ghost. Like, she has no signs of death, which, you know, she will later.
Yeah.
For reasons that I still don't understand. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, it's sort of like, oh, like, here's someone I can kind of pal around with. That's how this ghost is introduced.
Yeah. There doesn't seem to be a strong, like, support network. Like, I think of, like, what people like Anne Helen Peterson write about with, like, how support networks can all look really different and, like, how adults can do caretaking for children. There are no other adults stepping into Zoe's life saying, hey, like, you kind of seem to be spending a lot of time in the woods with an imaginary friend. The grandparents are like, if that's how you're going to cope, we're cool with it.
Yeah, they seem like they're rolling with it, which kind of invites, like, many questions about the events that happened just prior to the start of this book. Like, what happened with Mom, the wreath queen, who gets a job? The craziest scene is when she shows up after, like, many months away, and she's like, yeah, I got a part-time gig making wreaths, so basically I came back here to get some materials from the woods, and it's cool because, and her mom is like, oh, I had no idea you were ever interested in that, and she's like, yeah, I'm not really, but, you know, like, they leave me alone, they don't come down on me, I don't have to, like, show up when I don't want to, and the mom is like, interesting, like, how nice for you that you don't have to show up, and it's like, everyone looking at Zoe, it's like, it's fraught. Like, in a way, like, the ghost needs to come into this family to kind of heal some things, and, like, whether or not that's what happens here is an open question.
Pam Conrad is not going to go there with you. Like, a woman who has the range to write about, like, people in Nebraska digging up dinosaurs, kids serving as assistants to Christopher Columbus. She's like, I'm not going to do the research on the details. She's like, where really is this taking place beyond some, like, vague sense of seasons changing? She's like, I don't care. I did kind of, like, reflect on the fact that I read Stephen King books when I was, like, probably young/too young. And I was like, yeah, I probably should have read this instead. Like, what's your relationship with scary books in your childhood?
I couldn't do it. Like
Oh,
I couldn't do many scary things. Like
Goosebumps.
I no, did
Never.
not do Goosebumps. No. I watched Are You Afraid of the Dark because it was sort of a group mentality. We had one TV and that's what my brothers wanted to watch on a Saturday night, so I got into that. But I kept telling myself this is on Nickelodeon, so it's not going to be that scary. So that's sort of how I talked myself into it. And remember at book fair, they would have those like scary stories book that were like black and white drawings on the cover.
Yeah, I read those.
I think I read those. I have no memory of it. And then like my dad would tell us a lot of like bizarre ghost stories from like family lore, like what I will call ghost stories. He's a Civil War person. He's interested in the Civil War. So I heard a lot of like he went to Gettysburg on a family vacation and was like, yeah, I went walking in the woods and like I saw this guy and he was like asking us for directions and he was dressed in a Civil War uniform and we thought he was a reenactor. But then later, like we asked around and there was no reenactor, so we think we saw a ghost. And it's like, okay, probably not, but
Maybe.
you know, like this is what I grew up with. And also it's like, I mean, growing up Catholic, there's like a lot of stories about like, you know, like saints will appear to you or like things like this that you would have in like CCD class or religious class. But I'm not a scary person. Like the first date I ever went on was to see The Sixth Sense in the movie theater. And my brother reminded me of this where he rewatched it 2 days ago and was like, remember when you did that? And I'm like, I want to block that out. I was like genuinely trying to be cool, but I was so terrified being in that theater house. And like, I can't even like, I can still see when that boy turns his head and his back of his head is gone.
I love that film. Like, it did also scare me very bad. So I love scary stories. One of the first books I read when I was younger, because I wanted to be like my brother. I thought he was cool. Was Pet Cemetery. I also read Carrie. I read like Tales of a Dragon by Stephen King. Like, I enjoyed all of those very much. I loved reading Goosebumps on the bus ride home. Like, I really liked those books.
Fair.
A prompt I saw on Twitter today was, you know, what's the scariest book you've ever read? My immediate response is the book about the Golden State Killer. That is the scariest book that I have ever read.
I remember when you read that.
That is the scariest book I have ever read, bar none. And I was recently reflecting on like books I read in, you know, years prior to that, like books by Anne Rule, by other people. Like, nothing comes close to how scary that book is.
And what made it so scary?
So I'll Be Gone in the Dark is a true story, obviously, about a real person who committed like real atrocious acts. It's the writing. Like, to me, it's all about the writing, because I read thrillers where somebody dies all the time, like literally weekly, and many of them do not scare me. Like, I read a book yesterday by Catherine Steadman. She's one of my favorite authors. It opened on a scene of a woman burying her husband. That doesn't scare me at all. Like, that does not
Whoa.
give, like, doesn't raise my hackles. This book delighted me. I don't think it ever scared me. For me, it's about suspense, and this book had none. Like, the stakes of whether dead, disintegrating Zoe was going to disappear. I think that like a psychologist read of this book would be that like Zoe Louise is here to help Zoe cope with a new life, and she disappears when Zoe is ready to make real friends. But we actually learn almost nothing about any of these people to make that determination. Like, I can tell you the pug is overweight.
The pug is having some health issues, and you know, we're all concerned about him, except that was so weird when so basically the whole premise of the book is like Zoe Louise appears. She's like, Zoe, do you know yet? And Zoe's like, what are you talking about? Like, many times. And she's like, you'll know when you know. And then like eventually
we don't know.
We don't know. Like, tell us. And then it's kind of like she's not really a likable ghost. I'm just going to say that. Like,
I agree.
She wrecks the playhouse. She puts all the furniture upside down and jams it in the ceiling at one point. And she's like, oh, you weren't here, so I thought I would tidy up. And I'm like, is this Pam being like, go see everything upside down? Like, what's happening? And then like basically her mom, the ne'er-do-well like wreath maker, shows up and takes her out in the woods to get stuff, and she gets caught in a rose bush, and she's like, oh, those have been here forever. It's from when that girl died like a long time ago. And that's when she's like, oh my god, what if Zoe Louise died young? And she starts to investigate and figures out she died in a fire in the house. all of this to say, like, by the end of the book, you're like, I had zero doubts that she was going to go, she can go up a staircase and then go into Zoe Louise's time in that house. And she's able to do that. And that's when she sees the bones in her hand when she's like crossing over. And she goes and basically like saves her in a way that's also like anticlimactic, frankly. But I don't know. This whole book is a vibe where I'm like, actually, this is about like a mother-daughter relationship that's very troubled and like no one's dealing with it except this ghost, I guess, kind of, except she's not. Like, it's kind of sad because when she goes to Zoe Louise's time, Zoe Louise's mom is like incredibly doting and like she's every time we see her, she's preparing Zoe Louise's birthday party, which is where, spoiler alert, her brother will like push a tablecloth into lamp oil that gets ignited on the birthday candles and allegedly kills Zoe Louise without Zoe's intervention. But like Zoe's own mom is like bad news bears as far as I'm concerned.
The truth is, like, we don't get enough context about like almost anything. And what's sort of a fascinating insight into the grandparents is when Zoe starts to find historic newspaper articles shoved in the house, she's like, this is how, like, she doesn't have Nexus Lexus. She's like, this is how I'm gonna like get to the truth about this property. Like, we can't call up the real estate agent. Like, this is how I'm gonna get to it. And grandma's basically like, if you start to look into the past, you'll never stop. And I was like, okay, Pam, like,
Okay,
thanks
cool.
for the endorsement
Thanks,
of
Grandma.
history. I
my
found
God.
a publisher's review of this that I thought was kind of fascinating, where they say that Zoe Louise is Zoe's soulmate. And I was like, okay, I'm not sure about that.
What?
And this is part of their review. Conrad's latest novel is a surprisingly comforting tale told in a direct, graceful style. Zoe, abandoned by her mother, adopts the life struggle of a ghost as her cause, and in winning is able to accept and love her mother just a little, like, question mark by me. This is a warmly poetic, atmospheric story shot through with bursts of fear, desperation, and very real suspense. I'm going to say something, and I don't mean this to just be like a flip comment. I think part of what was going on in the 80s and early 90s with fiction is like white people will help like anyone from the past except like living people who are directly asking for mutual aid and advocacy. Like, this book is coming out at the same time as like the Americans with Disabilities Act, like a whole new round of like civil rights legislation. And Pam and others are like, but what if this dead girl in the playhouse needs help? Like, what if
Pam's
we look
like,
over
I
there?
went walking with a ghost. And everyone's like, okay, but what about people alive right now? And she's like,
well,
not interested.
Here's the thing, like, what
Not
about this girl
interested.
who died in a fire? The book Ghost Worlds by Colin Dickey is one of my favorites, and it's kind of like, what are ghost stories really about? And I know that we've talked about that before. I do just love like grandma, who could be Kit Kittredge's age, like, let's be honest, basically saying like, why would you like look into that? And I do think for us, like, as readers, that was a fascinating moment for me of, like, Zoe is kind of maturing from age 4 to almost being a teenager and saying, like, no, I want to ask questions. I want to understand. This family is wound up so tight, no one can ask a question about mom outside of the Wreath side gig. But it's like, even asking a basic question, they're like, whoa, we can't go there.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, no one ever wants to think too deeply about anything in this book, which makes it hard to find through lines or like kind of like the so what of why we're doing this. Like, I do think the basic point of like the ghost is clearly doing some kind of work for Zoe at this time in her life, even if she doesn't understand that.
Yeah.
And there is kind of like the button at the end of the book where when they get to the newspaper account that describes how Zoe Louise was killed in a fire in her kitchen, that grandma's like, wow, like Zoe Louise, wasn't that who Zoe was talking to when she was like 4 and she like was talking to a ghost? And everyone's like, ho hum, next. And like Zoe doesn't say like, yeah, actually I'm still like in conversation with that person and I'm like currently trying to save her life. And it's very strange. And there's no all the internal life we get is about the ghost. Like, there's no internal life that's about, like, I don't know why my mom's acting this way, or, like, I'm uncomfortable around my mom because this thing happened in the past, and that's why I'm here. It's like, we're not getting any of that.
There are some moments that are written really well. Like I flagged on page 40. You kind of get this like rare moment of introspection where Zoe is talking about the scene of the family having the early Sunday afternoon dinner. Oscar is curled up at the feet. That's the dog. And this is like her internal monologue. If you were to take a picture, you'd think, this is nice, looks okay. You wouldn't be able to tell that she just drove up an hour ago and that no one had heard a word from her for 6 months before that, or that she had hugged me woodenly before scooping up old Oscar and letting him lick and nibble at her face as if she were his mother. Like, there's so much that goes unsaid in this book, and it's like, let's delve into the mystery of like why we're not in therapy versus like what Zoe Louise in the bric-a-brac outfit from 1890 is doing in the playhouse.
Yeah. I mean,
no one asked me.
No one asked. In a way, I was kind of thinking about it, and I'm like, in the same way that Zoe Louise haunts Zoe and only gives her like need to know information, and like not even that, where she's like, do you know yet? Like, you'll know when you know. And it's like, we don't, please tell us. And she just disappears. Zoe herself is kind of haunting us as the reader and like only telling us, or like the book is kind of in a similar way only giving us like very limited information about like the only story it cares about, which is this ghost story. Like the context around it like seemingly doesn't matter.
And so different from, again, we talked about Avi last year, so different from Something Upstairs, right? Where there really is like a very blatant attempt for like a young boy to try to like solve a race crisis, right, within the house.
Yes.
Like really a very, very different kind of book. If a ghost said, like, I want to be your friend, would you accept?
I don't know. It's like, what are the stakes? Like, what's the stakes? I don't know.
You share a name, and you, like, kind of look alike.
I feel like that would freak me out, but I would kind of have to go with it because it's like, well, does anyone say no in that situation?
I don't know that you're allowed to say no. Like, I do wonder, you know, it's like Casper is sort of about a love interest. Like, I wonder why this book, like, so the arc is sort of like, how will she save her friend? And does that mean sort of making sure that she doesn't die? But this is sort of a, like, becoming your own grandpa by, like, changing, you know, time.
Yes.
The whole reason why Zoe is named as she is her mother, during one of her random visits, we're led to believe, saw the name Zoe Louise on a gravestone. And that's why this girl is named Zoe. It's like a connection they have when they walk around the grave sites. So, like, how are we here?
I don't know. It's very strange. And it's also like, okay, if we know, and she definitely knows that she was named after this person's gravestone, when she sees the mom, wouldn't she say to the mom at some point, like, hey, mom, like, no big deal, but I think Zoe Louise is, like, trying to send me a message?
I don't know that grandma or mom are really ever very concerned with the fact that, like, this girl is kind of hanging out and acting strangely and doesn't seem to have other friends. What did you make of the kind of, like, epigraph, I guess I'm gonna call it, at the beginning called Ghost Time?
Wait, hold on. I gotta go find this. Ghost Time.
I do feel like Pam was like, okay, like, I was onto something with historical novels. I'm going to bring in a ghost. I'm not going to teach them anything about the past. I'm going to call it Ghost Time and Stonewords. And the agent was like snapping, and it was like, yes, Pam, I love it. Keep it going. Will this girl find a dinosaur? And she like didn't prep for the meeting, and she's like, not a dinosaur. What about a ghost? And they're like, okay, so what's the ghost's name? And she's like, Zoe. No, Pam, you already told us that's the protagonist's name. And she's like, Zoe Louise. And they're like, we like it.
Great. Write the check. We're done. Thank you. I feel like she was in the agent's office, like, looking around the room, and they were like, what's your next big idea? And she's like, oops, didn't prepare, and was like, the assistant's name is Zoe. Gonna run with that. Gonna do some spoken word off the dome, put that at the front of the book. I'm rereading this now, and it's like, of course this didn't stay in my mind because it's just like word soup. And maybe we do a dramatic reading of this, but I can't understand what this is about.
Do you like visiting cemeteries?
Yes, actually, I was just in a cemetery this past weekend. I went on a tour in Old Wethersfield for colonial, like, death history and witch trial stuff, because, in Connecticut, we did that first, no big deal. But we hung witches before Salem in 1647, I think, or 1649. It started, and it kind of went for like 100 years, basically. But Wethersfield and Windsor, Connecticut are where many of the accused witches live. So I went on this like very strange, I actually went on 2 walking tours in 2 weekends, one in Windsor, one in Wethersfield. The one in Windsor was crazy because the one was like, there's not a lot of archive. We don't really know what happened, so we can't really speculate. And she was like, did I write a novel about this? Yes. In which I'm speculating, yes. And that was a wild time. And someone was on the tour and was like, I'm a descendant of the minister who was on vacation when this all broke out. So, like, he's not responsible. And then in the Wethersfield tour, we were in the cemetery. And we went, that stone in the Wethersfield cemetery of the man who killed his family. And then he killed himself in, like, 1778 or something.
I believe you. I don't, like...
Okay. So, well, I think we've seen it. But I'll post a picture of it. I did take a picture. But I was... this man was like kind of talking. He read a description of that stone and like how this happened in 1778. And then we're like casually walking by like a Bulkley, who's like a big family in the history of Connecticut. And he was like, that's my ancestor. No big deal. And it's like he was the governor and like involved in the witch trials. And a man like fully dressed up as a Puritan who would accuse the witches. And he accused all of us of being witches in the cemetery. And that was iconic. But all to say, I love going to a historic cemetery. And I've also loved that Instagram account. I don't know what it's called, but the woman who makes recipes off of gravestones that are put on gravestones.
Oh, yeah, they're to die for. There was just a big feature about her.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. And I know you also are a cemetery fan, I believe.
I am. I think that this book would have really spoken to me in an extremely meaningful way as a young person who loved Bridge to Terabithia, which I've talked about before, who loved my own playhouse, who loved my dollhouse, who was very interested in all of these kinds of things. I think there's like a little element in this is like pure just like escapist novel, like 130 pages, like takes you to another place. Someone like Anne Rinaldi is operating with like a very different deck of cards. Like Anne Rinaldi wants to make you question everything. I think Pam Conrad is a lovely writer. Like I think there are a lot of turns of phrase in here that I appreciate quite a bit. I read this kind of on like a rainy afternoon and I was like, well, that was a book, like it didn't upend any of my beliefs. I do think the thing that was like maybe missing for me was I felt really confident that like Zoe Louise was going to disappear eventually, and whether that was because like the timeline was fixed and she didn't have to die so young or because she just faded away, like her already being dead, that makes it hard to add suspense. And yet I felt a ton of suspense with something upstairs. Like this is something a lot of books do where it's like go back in time and change it. I guess for me, like Zoe Louise is not a good friend. She's not like funny or nice, and so dead or alive, it's like I'm not sure what we're doing.
Zoe Louise is kind of a jerk, which introduces the rough problem of like, do I want to go back in time to save her life or like even figure out how she died, because we don't even know that. She just kind of shows up from time to time and like takes her shoes and wrecks her playhouse and makes a lot of demands and doesn't give a lot of information. But I think, like, to your point, like, I think this book would have been smarter if early on it created a major buy-in moment for why we should care about Zoe Louise and what the stakes were, especially for Zoe herself, to be like, well, like, Zoe, if you don't come back and, like, save me, then I won't be able to, like, do this thing that's actually going to impact your life.
We also have
you know what I'm saying?
No, I do. And we have no sense of how the magic works. Like, we know that there is a staircase. We know that something weird is happening with the staircase. I have read a few books recently where I've reflected on the fact that, like, I read a book called The Rehearsals where a couple wakes up every single day for a week straight and they are stuck on the day of their wedding rehearsal. And there's no moment or, showing of the hand of why that's happening. It's just happening. And they have to try to get out of this cycle of the day. And the way they get out of it is ultimately like not magical or mystical. It just sort of happens. I'm fine with that in a novel. Like, I'm not a big high fantasy person. But with this, it was sort of like, wait, why can't we be in the staircase? Is there a signal that that's a servant staircase? Not entirely. The most
Yeah.
alarming scene to me was when we're actually transported back to the moment where Zoe Louise died the first time. And we have this sense of like she could die again. And we're seeing that it's carelessness with her birthday candles. And like that hit me where I live.
Why? Because you also like get into fire play with your birthday candles.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, this is actually kind of like a fascinating moment. I think this is like a really rare book for us where like I can't really flag anything as like problematic or extremely humorous or extremely bonkers. This is like pretty much a run of the mill like 90s scary story.
I think it is, where it's like we don't even know why we're here. We don't really know what we're supposed to get from it. At the end of it, she ends up like, waving enthusiastically at her own mom and is like, okay, I guess I am like, I mean, it's not like she's sad her mom is leaving, but she's like, I'm willing to wave at her through the trees as her car drives away. And it's like, progress question mark? Like, I don't know. It's sort of all over the place, but it makes me think about like the 90s as a time when these stories were happening. Like, what was the culture of ghost stories for kids? What was out there? What were we seeing?
I mean, apparently for the year that this came out, I mean, this is like a major award winner. Like, this is considered creme de la creme. This is the Edgar winner, right, of mystery books. I do think that part of what's happening is like, this is the foundational culture for things like Goosebumps becoming extremely popular. Are You Afraid of the Dark? All those kinds of things. This feels a little bit like a weird cousin who couldn't hang at Sweet Valley High got mixed up with a ghost.
Yes.
What is good about it, though, right? I was reading a Twitter thread this week about the book Go Ask Alice and the author of that book and kind of her, like, war on drugs agenda and all those kinds of things. There's no agenda here.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like that's a good point. It's not like when you're watching Angels in the Outfield and then out of nowhere, like Christopher, what's his name, like turns to the camera and is like, when he talks about how Tony Danza's character is dying from lung cancer and nobody knows it yet, and he's like literally breaks the fourth wall and is like, kids, that's why you don't smoke.
Yeah.
And then it's like back to the movie. Like that was such a prevalent thing, I feel like, where people were like, there has to be a message in absolutely everything we're making for kids. And if you can't appreciate that, like even Casper is like trying to do a lot about like how we should approach grief.
Yes.
In a weird way. And like that, the end of that movie like destroys me still. Like that's so like emotional. But everything is like a teachable moment. So in a way, like, go off, Pam. Like you refuse to do that and good for you.
I read a reader's review that said, this book scared me to death.
Wow.
And it made me curious because I think what scares you is so relative, right? Like what you find scary is genuinely so personal. And I am very easily frightened or alarmed by people like taking me aback or surprising me, right? Like you come around a corner, I'm going to scream. But actually being scared, like that's a different kind of threshold for me. And despite being scared by many things, I will watch just about any horror movie. Like I will engage with it even though I am scared. I was never scared by this book.
Yes.
That's not a flex, it's for 10-year-olds, but books for 10-year-olds have scared me.
Yes. I think that's true. I mean it's like to like what you're saying is like I think I'm scared by other things or I find other things more frightening. Like I remember being like in around that age group and like reading about major historic events or tragedies. Like that doesn't scare me per se, but I think it haunts me more than other things that I've seen. Like this probably wouldn't have stayed with me. I think it wouldn't have scared me, but I would have just like moved on from it. But I think there's being scared and being haunted by things
are different.
Like they're different, but I think it makes me think about that. Like, what do you read that stays with you and just like haunts you? And honestly, like too, in our culture, like growing up, it was like the culture of away messages and people like sharing scary away messages or like those chain away messages that were like, here's a story about a dog that was like killed and left in a bathroom, or like it's like insane stuff where you're like, why is this? Who is spreading this crap? But also it's like kind of scary. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like all different ways that like folklore and legends are sort of like passed on and on. This month, the book that was chosen by our Patreon book club to read was called The City Beautiful by Aidan Polidorus. And That was a book that was set with the backdrop of the Columbian Exposition in Chicago around the same time as the serial killer H.H. Holmes. Stuff I read about H.H. Holmes always scares me a lot because he trapped people and I get claustrophobic. And so that is like immediately something that like, you know, accelerates my pulse. What I liked about that book, this new one, The City Beautiful, was it included a lot of kind of mystical elements, and it was from the point of view of a recent Jewish immigrant who was like finding his way. So there's layers of fear. It's like he has fears of committing a misstep in front of the police. He has fears of his friends being murdered because there is this serial killer going around unchecked. To me, it's like layers. If there had been like a moment in this in this book where Zoe goes to school and like embarrasses herself by talking about her ghost friend, that would have sent my heart racing.
Yes, I agree. Like I find myself now like fast forwarding through TV scenes that are awkward or like uncomfortable. I just don't want to sit with somebody watching someone be embarrassed.
Yeah. And
I know it's probably my own issue and I should probably like sit with that myself, but I just don't have the patience for it. But yeah, that's interesting. I'll add that book to my to-read list.
Like if someone gave you the opportunity and they said like, you can go fix something, but we can't tell you what all of the consequences are, would you go with Zoe Louise and do it?
This is like Interstellar territory.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, like, I don't know. Like, if it was my own life, I would say no, because I'd want to end up here, and I don't know how to, like, ensure that, because you don't know, like, if I switch this one thing, is that going to throw everything else off? But it's like, if it's like a Manchurian Candidate moment where it's like, we could save you from the president being murdered, like, would you do it?
Well, it seems that all that changes in this book is the landscaping.
Yeah. Yes, and the pug.
And the pug.
Remember, he gets carried up the stairs into the past, and then she's like, oh my God. Zoe's like, oh my God, he looks so young. And they're like, don't you think he looks young?
Yeah, for some reason, this portal is like Botox for pugs. There's like a landscaping element. But I can't say that this book scared me, and there are things I like about a scary story this time of year. I've been sort of ruminating on this for weeks and weeks, and I finally wrote like a 2,000 word essay that I'm just like sitting on about whether the place I work is haunted, because I get asked about it literally like 5 times a day, and it's something that I think about a lot. And something I find kind of fascinating is the casual way in which people seem to want or think they want to interact with ghosts. Like, could you truly imagine if I just said yes and like pulled ectoplasm out from the closet? I'm not, like, part of why I wrote an essay is I have ideas about what I think people want to happen in that moment and what they're really talking about. But people ask me this at like truly the most inopportune moments. And part of my job is answering the same questions over and over. Like, I answer the same questions over and over. And I don't mind that because that's part of my job and I go into it. There was a cluster of children, for reasons I'm not sure of, who were doing like a scavenger hunt or a worksheet. And they were told to ask a guide or ranger if children had died on the site. And I found that really upsetting because it was being asked in a very casual way. I'm not sure what the exact directions were, but this one poor like 11-year-old kind of got a mouthful from me because I talked about how like one of my jobs is to tell the truth. Like, you know, boiling it down to its core, like it's my job to try to tell the truth about the past, and that's not always an easy thing to do. And I was also sort of like trying to assuage the fears of people on the tour. I was like, nobody died right here, which doesn't mean people didn't die in mills, but like, let's get that off the table.
Yes. I mean, wow, what a question to have kids ask with no context or like no prep. You have no idea like how a teacher or somebody prepared them to.
Or why.
Yeah, exactly. That's bizarre. I mean, it kind of gets to like, I don't know what, if you want to share what you wrote in your essay or like kind of where you're at with it after doing that exercise, but it's sort of like in a similar way, like people interested in the witch trials, like, what is this doing for you now? Like, what does a fascination with ghosts now, like, what is it people want to get out of these kind of tours or experiences, and what are they actually getting?
Because honestly, like a bottom line for me, and I say it to people with different tone and affect depending on how I've interacted with them, like I do believe in ghosts and I don't want to experience them at my job. And I am very upfront with people about that like I have personal beliefs that I think are actually somewhat irrelevant to the work that I do. And I say like it's my job to tell the truth about people who are dead and to talk with and about people who are not alive. That does not make this a ghost tour. Like there are reasons why these things are separate. And I tell them, like, I hang out in cemeteries. I love cemeteries. I'm very fascinated, but we're not honoring real people by making stuff up. And I don't have a problem saying that because I think when you pull in fantastical stories about ghosts in any kind of context, and even if you say, well, this is speculation or this is a story somebody heard, I have a lot of authority in the uniform that I wear and the job that I do. That becomes a real story to people. So it's like, it's my job to stick to what I understand to be true. And I say like, I don't want to have those experiences here because I really like don't want to think about people who have suffered being forced to stay here. Like that's a horrible thought to me. Like the idea of people who were publicly executed for crimes being held in perpetuity as ghosts, like I don't want to meet them, nor do I want to meet the people who executed them.
Yes, exactly.
Like I'm
like
good.
I've never understood this romanization with like I said, I went on that tour this weekend and it started in a colonial house, and the woman doing the tour in the house was like, yeah, so sometimes people ask me if I've ever seen ghosts, and then like proceeds to say her own, like she believes in ghosts, and was like, here's experiences where like people in the house doing like different work on the utilities have left and refused to return because of like experiences they won't describe, and basically like that kind of thing, and hearing noises when no one's there. And it's like, okay, but you're like, I feel like there's this weird culture of like, we must anticipate that everyone's going to ask about ghosts and like what they expect to hear.
Yeah.
When, if asked. And it's like, well, what do people want to hear about that? Like what work do people want ghost stories to do for them? Is it to explain what the past was like? Is it to help bridge the gap between the past and the present? I don't know.
I think it's also something they feel comfortable asking about, right? Like there are parts of things at my job that can feel, I think, probably technical to people, because I'll get people coming in saying like, I'm really psyched about machines and I want you to talk about machines. So I get talking about inner workings or mechanics of old machinery. Well, then the people who feel like maybe they haven't had like a moment, they're like, are there ghosts here, right? Because they have seen something on television. I don't even think it's a bad question. I think it's a valid question. It's one that I'm like happy to answer on a daily basis, where I draw a line. And it's interesting, like we take pride on my team with answering questions differently, right? That we like bring different interpretations and we have, you know, the same framework, but that we talk about things a bit differently. We've kind of come together to say like, we're not entertaining made up stories about people suffering. And we say that out loud to people. And I think that's very surprising to folks. Obviously, Taya Miles and other people have written about this way better, but I hadn't seen people writing about it in this industrial context. Like kids getting hurt is not entertainment to me. And I don't say that to like make people feel bad, because I think they're asking for a reason. Like that's all they've ever heard about. They're like, oh, kids got hurt. It's like, yeah, kids did get hurt. Let's talk about that. At the core of this is a girl, this book, who's confused, right? She's got this girl with the same name as her disintegrating in real time, and grandma's like, keep the newspapers in the basement, we don't have time,
please get the Scrabble.
She's like, it's time for Scrabble, our pug is obese, everyone is dealing with that. I'm bringing up the thing about the pug over and over because the amount of texture detail we get about this pug's weight is so bizarre relative to the lack of detail about anything else.
Yeah, I don't know why body shaming the pug felt necessary, but it happens a lot in this book. And there's also like no details about this animal. It's just, it's very odd, like the things that Pam is like, I'm going to assign detail, a great level of detail to like this thing that I care about that actually is sort of extraneous to the story. And then the
Yeah.
things within the world of the story we're not getting. Like in a lot of ghost stories, like the reason the ghost exists is because it's doing something for the person seeing it or whatever. And we can extrapolate and have about why, like what work this ghost is doing for Zoe, but it's sort of like unclear because it's not even like we've said the book has this like resolution of like, oh, I prevented this like horrible tragedy in the past, or I learned something about myself in the present. Or, you know, like to Taya Miles' point, like studying the depiction of enslaved people as ghosts in historic spaces, like actually, you know, further perpetuating like hugely racist ideas about the past and the present. Or even I've seen people write about former mental asylums and like
Right.
ghosts in those spaces, which actually have hugely damaging messaging for people living with disability and mental illness in the present. So it's kind of like there's all these like different historical reasons why you would throw to a ghost story. So if that's not what we care about, like what is this about?
Well, and let's contrast for a moment the richness in literally 60 pages each of the relationship between characters like Ruthie and Kit, right? Like a female friendship of a comparable kind of thing versus I think there's something so deeply sad about the fact that Zoe and Zoe Louise are hanging out because they literally have no one else. For
Yes.
Zoe Louise, it's like, okay, I get it because she's kind of half dead, half alive. For Zoe, that's very sad.
It's extremely sad. And also like even going to the past, she's invisible there. Like she literally becomes a ghost going into
Right.
the past. That's why she can see her own hand because her body weirdly gets translucent as she becomes a ghost on the stairs. It was really weird to me, by the way, and that's never explained when Zoe Louise shows up as like a corpse.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like disgusting. Like the scene is disgusting. Like her body is decaying. There's like stuff oozing out of her. And she's like, you waited too long. And it's like, but then she didn't. And she was fine. Like it's just, it sort of just made me feel sad for Zoe because like Zoe Louise has such a presence when she's in Zoe's world. And when Zoe goes into Zoe Louise's life, it's like Zoe Louise can just ignore her at will and it's fine. It's like Zoe is invisible in both her actual life and in the past. So it's just like doubly sad.
I think that if Judy Bloom or someone else had taken on this character, like I'm kind of like still laughing because you can tell that someone in marketing wrote Zoe's best friend is a ghost, right? Like that is kind of like funny. And there's a world in which this book could have been camp. And it could have been
Yes.
sort of like, you know, Zoe gets asked to homecoming, but Zoe Louise shows up with like a dead corsage, right? Like there's so many
Yes.
things that like could have been either funnier or scarier about this book, and it kind of doesn't sway to either extreme. There's, you know, something in the publisher's weekly review that talks about her as like a very lyrical writer. I think this is like a very pleasant book, and I would imagine that the audiobook would be a lot of fun to listen to because it's kind of this endless like back and forth between two girls with basically the same name being like, wait, are you dead? Are you alive? How are we going to resolve this?
Do
Kind
you
of
know
a scary
yet?
ending. Are we sure? But there's no like typical drama to kind of break a wall where it's like, oh, and like Zoe forgot her math homework.
Yeah, it's also like we have no idea if this girl goes to school. Like, I mean,
No.
we so get so little information about the rest of her life that you have no idea what's going on. We know she plays Scrabble with grandma. We know that she's keeps the newspapers downstairs until she needs to figure out what happened to Zoe Louise and hides them in her room. We know the dog is unwell, I guess, in some ways, or maybe totally fine, hard to say.
Would you
There's a lot.
rather live with these people knowing what's going on, the Zoe Louise is unresolved, or very similar plotline in some ways, live with the Addams family?
100% live with the Addams family.
Okay, I'm adding another one. Would you want to live with the Zoes, the Addams, or the original Addamses, John and Abigail?
Who? Addams family. There's no possible way you don't disappoint John Adams as a father.
Yeah.
And I think that would be hard to live with.
I'm never going to live with the Addams family.
Why?
The creepy and kooky. Never gonna happen. Never.
Okay. But I mean, like, I feel like you could just be like the outcast in the family who's like a normie. Where
Wednesday
you're like,
creeps
I'm
me out.
rebelling.
Wednesday creeps
Okay.
me out. I don't like the hand. The hand repulses me. I forgot how much the hand
Why?
repulses me. I really don't like that. I'm sorry. I really don't like
Thing?
that. I would sleep with one eye open my entire life. I'd have to be sure Thing could not enter my bedroom. I'm sorry. It's not right. I know that Thing helps to save Morticia. In the end, it's not. It's a no for me. It's 100%. Like,
But
I
then
don't.
there's like, you don't want Thing at all.
No.
It's like a no-go.
There's no Thing for me. I would want to live with young John and Abigail or elderly John and Abigail. I don't really want to deal with John Quincy. I know that I would disappoint John, but he would disappoint me as well.
Damn.
I know.
I mean, but is that going to make it easier for you if you're like sitting with your disappointment and
Yep.
like privately stewing about him? Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's like, I'm sure the Addams family have access to penicillin. I know that
Yeah.
the John and Abigail don't. So that's ultimately the deciding point for me. But I also think their mansion is so huge. I could just kind of squirrel myself away and be like, look, I'm here as the outcast. Like, I'm into the way you all love each other. That's beautiful. I don't really know that I can commit to some of like the...
They have rats. You know that. There's rats there and spiders.
Okay, that's difficult for me.
Like,
You know, I don't
you
do
think
that.
it's all tea with Morticia, and it's not. It's going to be Thing when you're in the shower, like trying to get like a hand cream. It's just, it's like none of it.
There's too
is
much.
for
There's
me.
too much. Cousin It.
No. Okay, I kind of like Cousin It because I think there's a lot of potential there. But, you know,
I love. He reminds me of the Muppet, like Beaker, where
Yes.
it's like he's just like making noises and everyone can understand him except you, and you're like, this is kind of cool. I don't know. I love Christina Ricci in all things, so I feel like I have to support her, even if I couldn't support that lifestyle, perhaps.
I hear that. I don't think I own enough black clothing. I think I could get there. That family's just not for me. I'm sorry. Like, I am so glad that people wanted to watch that film with us. I'm not coming out like the way that I did against our September watch. I apologize for that. I know
Wow.
that was like a lot to take in. I'm very excited to watch Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Honestly, such an iconic movie.
Yeah.
Like a movie that could never be made today because all that would need to happen is like an email
Yeah.
or a phone. But like, you know, what an iconic Christina Applegate, right? Like in one of her earliest, I think, film roles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so iconic. Like, I remember watching that and being like, whoa, like this is what I could get up to when I start babysitting. And like, spoiler alert, that's not what happened. But I mean, they don't make movies like that anymore. We don't get a Don't Tell Mom Your Babysitter's Dead.
No, we don't have that. I'm also very excited for the cutting edge. I think we're going to be taking people kind of like, you know, across a spectrum where it's like we're going to dig into something like deep with ancestor trouble. And then it's like, just when you think we're on thin ice, no, we're going for the gold. Magic Attic Club. I'm going to bring my Magic Attic doll. Her name is Allison with one L. I'm going to bring her.
Whoa.
She's been sort of like pulled out of her own attic situation because my niece enjoys playing with her. She's a beautiful doll.
Okay. And she's still beautiful after your niece playing with her.
No comment. But she's having a nice
Fair.
time. She's a blonde doll. She's got a nice little headband. I remember distinctly being like, I can't wait for her to enter this like figure skating competition. Like I was excited about it.
So exciting.
I will say too, like if this was your recommendation, like you gave me a great afternoon in the form of Stonewords, and I want to thank you for it.
Yeah, we had fun. I mean, as much as we're like, we don't understand what happens, like, you know, sometimes like chaos is your cure. Like you can just sit down with something and be like, I'm on the ride with this person. Like I was genuinely trying to figure out what was happening the entire time. Yeah, I mean, so thank you. I genuinely love these suggestions because I'd never heard of this book. So
No.
it was cool to get to go back in time and read this.
I've been with Pam before, but not like this.
Okay, fair. I mean, someday maybe we'll be with Pam again.
Gosh, I hope so. I don't know.
So if you're a member of our Discord, please go on to the Patreon channel. Let your voice be heard. Add it to the database. We do check that all the time to pick things. So, you know, we look forward to seeing. And there's so many suggestions, great suggestions on there right now. So it's like, we'll just have to figure it out.
There's things happening on the Discord all the time, every day. Pretty much anything you want to talk about, please get on there. We also just love when you suggest any kind of idea for a future episode. We keep track of all of those, and we want to make the content that you want to listen to. So just let us know what that is.
Excellent. Yes, there's so many things we can watch, so many things we can read and take part in. And I love the watch-alongs too. So if there's watch-along suggestions you have, let us know, because we're looking to set our schedule for 2023. I can't believe that's almost here in a couple months. So let us know. It's exciting. And I'm excited for the PowerPoint party. If this comes out on Halloween. Allison, what was your favorite Halloween costume of all time?
I was Ariel when I was younger, and folks have been joking about this. And so that meant I had to wear 2 white turtlenecks, and then my mother sewed what looked like clamshells that were made out of shiny fabric on top of them. And I still had to wear a jacket, but I had a tail. What about you, Mary?
Whoa. That's intense. Like, parents making you wear a jacket to ruin your costume effect is a whole vibe. I was Betty Crocker one year.
Nice.
And I carried my grandmother's cookbook, and she made me that costume. So that was my favorite costume.
My mom made me a new one every year. I loved my Halloween costumes.
It's very special when you can kind of like DIY them at home. And that's often what I did. Like, I was Leonardo da Vinci one year. I was a hippie one year because I saw 1969 or whatever that Julia Stiles miniseries was. Probably too young. But so I had like a tie-dye vest and pant outfit. I'll have to find that photo, but that was a moment. That's when I had my butterfly clips going. Like, that was a real moment in time for me. It was probably one of my last Halloweens, like going out trick-or-treating.
Us dressing like the 60s is why kids now dress like the 90s. And I'll leave you with that sobering thought.
No. I reject that.
It's true, though.
And I can't. Like, as I told you, I told a college student to watch Murder, She Wrote this week, and she replied, quote, "Is it black and white?"
Like, I don't know. Is it?
Stay in school. I don't know.
Stay in school.
I'm like, you need to figure it out. I was like, it's on Peacock. It's free. I'm mourning. Like, don't even talk to me about this right now. She was so serious, though. She was like, wow, it sounds like an awesome show. She was like, is that black and white? And I had said, it's from the 80s into the 90s.
She maybe thought you meant 1880s.
Oh, wow. Okay. I should have been more
Throwback.
specific, I guess.
I love it.
Damn. Wow. Okay. I'm also listening to the Charlie Manson episodes. Allison, if you must remember this. Like, I have to do it during daytime because I get too scared. But I'm like, wow, I forgot Angela Lansbury kind of, like, called him out earlier. Before the murders were committed. Damn. Not to leave you with that thought, but there it is. So if people want to get in touch with us... If you want to report, any Charles Manson news, or please don't, I'll be too scared. Or you want to send scary stuff to Allison that she can read, where should people find you, Allison?
People can find me at Allison Horrocks on Twitter and Instagram. Recommend to me your favorite scary stories, your favorite ghost stories. Can also follow the show, Dolls Lives Pod on Twitter, Dolls of Their Lives Podcast on Instagram. Mary, where should they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Mary Mahoney123, or more likely on Instagram at Mimi Mahoney. And please do not send me anything scary.
Okay.
When I tell you I'm a wimp, like, I cannot handle it. When you were talking about what's the scariest book you've ever read, my answer was, "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret." Like,
okay, menstruation can be scary.
I can't. I know, especially because when you're not there yet and you're like, holy what? Like, when you're talking about something in theory and you're like, that is going to happen to me?
Yeah.
No. So I don't, please, I can't. Just, like, think of me on my Sixth Sense date. Like, don't send me that stuff. You can send me, like, fun stuff, but not that, please, I beg of you. But love this community. Love everyone's contributions to it. Please be in touch with us. We so appreciate all of you. And I will see you at the PowerPoint party whenever that happens. And, in our next episode.